At the height of $1 million luxury wedding, a single hidden note found at table 8 exposed the ballroom shimmered like something out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls of light, casting a golden glow over polished marble floors. Every table was wrapped in silk and crowned with tall arrangements of white orchids and roses. Soft violin music floated through the air, blending with gentle laughter and the clinking of crystal glasses. It was not just a wedding, it was a statement, a celebration designed to be remembered. Women in designer gowns moved gracefully across the hall, their diamonds catching the light with every turn. Men in tailored suits stood confidently beside them, discussing business deals between sips of champagne. Cameras flashed from every corner, capturing smiles, embraces, and carefully curated happiness. This was the kind of event people would talk about for years, and at the center of it all stood the bride. She looked flawless. Her gown flowed around her like soft clouds, hand-stitched lace hugging her frame with delicate elegance. A long veil rested gently on her shoulders, and her makeup was subtle but radiant. When she smiled, it felt as if the entire room smiled with her. Guests leaned toward one another, whispering the same words over and over. They are the perfect couple. Her groom stood beside her, handsome, composed, admired. When he placed his hand at the small of her back, it looked protective, devoted. They laughed together for the cameras, cutting the towering white cake under applause. Every movement felt rehearsed by destiny itself. But perfection has a strange silence to it. For a brief second, so quick no one else noticed, her smile paused. Just a flicker. Her eyes scanned the room, not with excitement, but with something quieter. Searching. Why does my heart feel so restless tonight? She told herself it was normal. Weddings were overwhelming. So many eyes, so many expectations. So much pressure to look straightened her posture. To look happy to be happy. She straightened her posture, lifted her chin slightly higher, and returned to the glowing bride everyone expected to see. The music swelled louder as the host announced the first dance. Guests gathered closer, phones lifted in the air, eager to record the fairy tale moment. The bride stepped onto the dance floor, her hand slipping into her groom's as applause echoed through the grand hall. From the outside, it was flawless, but sometimes the most beautiful stages hide the deepest cracks. As they began to sway under the chandelier lights, laughter and admiration filled the air. No one could imagine that this glittering celebration was standing on the edge of collapse. No one could see the invisible thread of fate slowly tightening around this perfect night. Because when everything looks too perfect, isn't that when the truth waits to reveal itself? And in a ballroom built on luxury and illusion, one small detail, still unnoticed, was about to change everything. Laughter drifted through the ballroom like soft perfume. Guests moved from table to table, greeting old friends, adjusting gowns, and posing for photographs. Champagne glasses shimmered under golden lights. Conversations rose and fell in elegant waves. Business deals, compliments about the decor, whispers about how stunning the bride looked tonight. It was the kind of evening where nothing seemed out of place. Except at table 8. It was positioned slightly away from the center, close enough to see the stage, but far enough to be overlooked. The chairs were perfectly aligned. The plates were untouched. A silk napkin lay folded with careful precision beside the bride's reserved seat. And beneath that napkin, a small sealed envelope. No one noticed when it appeared. A quiet waiter stood there for a moment longer than necessary. His fingers lingered near the table edge, as if debating something invisible. His eyes flicked toward the bride across the room, radiant, laughing, unaware. Then he gently adjusted the napkin, ensuring the envelope remained partially hidden, but not completely invisible. He stepped back. This is not my place. But someone needs to know. The music grew louder as guests applauded another toast. The spotlight shifted to the stage, drawing everyone's attention away. Table 8 faded into the background like a forgotten detail in a beautiful painting. But the envelope remained. The surface was plain.
No de Keraschen. No Guaxil.
Just a simple name written in dark ink, hers. The handwriting was firm, almost urgent. Not romantic. Not playful. Serious. A thin shadow from the chandelier passed over it as the lights shifted above. For a brief second, the envelope seemed heavier than paper should be, as if it carried something far more dangerous than words. Across the room, the bride laughed again, unaware that a silent message was waiting only a few steps away. Her gown brushed the marble floor as she moved from guest to guest, thanking them for coming. Her smile glowed under camera flashes. Meanwhile, the note waited patiently. Isn't it strange how life can change in a single unnoticed moment? A group of guests finally approached table 8, pulling out their chairs and sitting down. One woman adjusted her clutch purse on the table, almost placing it directly on top of the napkin. But she stopped, distracted by someone calling her name. The envelope remained visible, untouched. The waiter glanced once more from across the hall. His jaw tightened slightly. Then he disappeared into the crowd, swallowed by uniforms and movement. The camera of fate lingered there, on that quiet table, that silent envelope, that folded napkin hiding something powerful enough to shatter crystal and silence music. The celebration continued. Toasts were raised. The violinist played softly. No one sensed the tension building beneath the surface of elegance. But sometimes the smallest object in the quietest corner car carries the loudest truth. Dinner was served beneath soft golden light. The bride finally took her seat at the head table, her laughter still lingering from the last toast. Crystal glasses shimmered around her. The scent of expensive perfume mixed with roses and warm food. Guests leaned toward one another, smiling, sharing stories, celebrating what they believed was a perfect union. She reached for her napkin. That was when she saw it. A simple envelope resting just beside her plate, her name written across it in dark, steady handwriting. Not the playful curves of her friends. Not the bold signature of a family member. This was unfamiliar. She tilted her head slightly, curious. Perhaps it was a surprise. A final love letter from her husband. A sweet gesture planned in secret. Weddings were full of emotional gifts and sentimental notes. A small smile touched her lips as she picked it up. Isn't it beautiful when love still surprises you? The music softened in the background. Conversations blurred into a gentle hum. She slid her finger carefully under the seal and opened the envelope with quiet anticipation. One folded page. She unfolded it slowly. The first line caught her attention immediately. Her smile paused. The second line made her blink. By the third, the warmth drained from her face. Her eyes moved faster now, scanning each word as if hoping she misunderstood. The room suddenly felt louder, yet distant. The clinking glasses, the laughter. Everything became muffled, like she was underwater. Her fingers tightened around the paper. This cannot be true. The words were clear. Dates, locations, details that were too specific to be imagined. Mentions of private meetings, financial transfers, a name she did not recognize. The note wasn't emotional or dramatic. It was calm, factual, almost cold. It ended with a single sentence. Before you promise forever, make sure you know who you are promising it to. Her heart began to pound so loudly she was certain someone nearby could hear it. She forced her lips into a polite smile as a guest leaned over to compliment the food. She nodded mechanically, barely registering the words spoken to her. Across the table, her groom laughed at something his best man said. He looked relaxed, confident, completely unaware. Or was he? She glanced at him, searching his face for a crack in the mask, a flicker of guilt, a hint of fear. But he only smiled back at her, raising his glass slightly as if to toast her again. Her hands trembled. The paper shook so gently that no one noticed. But inside, everything was breaking apart. How could a single sheet of paper feel heavier than the entire wedding hall? She folded the note slowly, carefully, as if it were fragile, as if handling it gently could soften its truth. She placed it back inside the envelope, but the words had already carved themselves into her heart. The music continued. The guests kept smiling. But something inside her had shifted forever. Because sometimes the quietest whispers carry the loudest warnings. The music in the ballroom continued, but inside her mind, everything had gone silent. She unfolded the letter again beneath the table, her fingers cold despite the warm lights above. This time she read every word carefully, slowly, as if precision could somehow protect her from the truth. There were dates, specific ones. Nights he had claimed to be working late. Business trips that were suddenly extended. Private reservations under a different name. Transfers of money she had never questioned. Attached to the note were printed screenshots and copies of receipts. Proof. Not rumors. Not jealousy. Proof. Her chest tightened. The man standing across the room in a perfectly tailored designer suit. The man guests called successful, disciplined, admirable had been living a second story behind closed doors. Meetings in quiet hotels. Conversations deleted. Promises made somewhere else. How long had this double life been unfolding right in front of her? Flashbacks began to surface one by one. That night he came home unusually quiet, saying he was just tired. The time she reached for his phone and he gently, almost casually, turned it face down. The sudden password change he brushed off as a security update. The unexplained bank notification she had ignored because she trusted him completely. I saw the signs. I just did not want to believe them. She remembered defending him when her best friend once said, "Are you sure he's as perfect as he looks?" She had laughed it off, proud of the man she was about to marry. Now that laughter echoed painfully in her memory. Across the hall, he adjusted his cufflinks, smiling confidently as he greeted relatives. He looked polished, untouchable, a man whose image was crafted carefully. Expensive watches, sharp suits, powerful connections. But beneath designer fabric, secrets were stitched tightly into the seams. The note described months of deception. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't a single weak moment. It was planned, hidden, sustained. Her breathing grew shallow. She realized something even more painful than the betrayal itself. He had trusted that she would never look deeper. He had trusted her love to blind her. The violinist began playing a softer melody, almost romantic. Guests applauded another speech. The celebration carried on, unaware that the foundation of this marriage had already cracked. She looked at him again. This time she did not see a groom. She saw a stranger wearing the face of the man she loved. And in that moment the fairy tale image shattered completely. Because sometimes betrayal does not shout. It smiles, stands beside you, and waits until it is too late. The envelope was still in her hand. The words inside had already changed her heart. But now something deeper was changing, her courage. She looked across the ballroom at the stage where her groom stood laughing with the best man. The lights framed him like a hero. Guests surrounded him, smiling, unaware of the storm forming just a few steps away. Her breathing steadied. The noise of the hall felt distant, almost unreal. She placed the folded note carefully inside her clutch. For a moment, she considered remaining silent, sitting quietly, smiling for the rest of the night, protecting the image, protecting the reputation. But the truth inside her was louder than the music. Instead of walking away to cry alone, she stood up slowly. Her chair moved back with a soft sound that seemed louder than it should have been. A few guests glanced in her direction, confused by her sudden movement. She adjusted her gown, lifted her chin, and began walking toward the stage. Step by step. The closer she got, the quieter the room became. Conversations slowed. Glasses paused mid-air. A subtle tension spread across the ballroom like a shadow. Is something wrong? Her heels clicked against the marble floor, each sound echoing with growing attention. Cameras that had been capturing joyful moments now turned toward her. Whispers followed her path. She reached the edge of the stage. Her groom noticed her approaching. At first, he smiled, thinking she was coming to share a private moment or join the celebration. But when he saw her expression, his smile faded slightly. She accepted the microphone from the host with trembling hands. The music stopped. The room fell into complete silence. Hundreds of eyes were now focused on her. The chandeliers glowed above like witnesses. Her fingers tightened around the microphone, but she did not look down. She looked forward. This is not about fear anymore. Her heart pounded, but her voice, when it came, was steady. Guests sensed it instantly. This was not a romantic speech. This was something serious, something unexpected. The air felt heavier, as if everyone was holding their breath together. Her groom shifted uncomfortably on the stage, trying to understand what was happening. The best man stepped back slightly. Even the photographer lowered his camera. She stood there alone but not weak. For the first time that night, she was not the smiling bride in a perfect picture. She was a woman choosing truth over illusion. And in that quiet ballroom, under crystal lights and shocked faces, a single moment began that would change everything. Because sometimes strength is not loud. It is simply the courage to stand up when it would be easier to stay silent. The microphone felt heavier than it looked. She stood beneath the chandelier lights, her white gown glowing against the sudden stillness of the room. The envelope rested in her trembling hand. Every guest was watching. Every camera was recording. What was meant to be a speech of gratitude was about to become something entirely different. She inhaled slowly. "I received something tonight," she began, her voice calm but firm. "And before I promise my life to someone, I think the truth deserves a place at this table too." A ripple of confusion spread across the ballroom. Her groom gave a soft, nervous laugh and stepped closer. "What is this?" he whispered under his breath, reaching gently for her arm. She moved her arm away. Then she unfolded the paper. The soft sound of it opening echoed in the silent hall. She began to read. She read the dates first, the nights he said he was working late. The business trips that had been extended without explanation. The hotel reservations made under another name. The financial transfers that did not match the story he had told her. A gasp escaped from somewhere in the crowd. Her groom's smile faded completely. The color drained from his face. He tried to interrupt, but the microphone was in her hands now, and so was the truth. She continued. She read the messages described in the note. The promises made in private conversations. The plans discussed behind her back. She did not raise her voice. She did not scream. That made it even more powerful. The ballroom shifted from celebration to disbelief in seconds. Her mother covered her mouth in shock. His father stared at the floor, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Bridesmaids exchanged horrified glances. Guests began whispering, first softly, then louder. "What is she saying? Is this real?" Cameras zoomed in. Phones were lifted higher. The perfect wedding was unraveling in real time. She looked at him, really looked at him, as she read the final line aloud. "Before you promise forever, make sure you know who you are promising it to." Silence. He shook his head quickly. "This is not what it looks like," he said, his voice cracking. "It's a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding? If this is a misunderstanding, why does it feel like betrayal carved in stone? Her heart was pounding, but she refused to let tears fall. Not here. Not now. The whispers grew louder. Some guests stood up. Others pulled out their phones to record every second. The violinist slowly lowered his instrument. The wedding planner froze near the stage, unsure what to do. The fairy tale image shattered completely. He reached for the microphone, but she stepped back, her eyes never leaving his. All those months of lies were no longer private. They were echoing against marble walls and crystal glass. The polished suit he wore could not protect him now. The carefully built reputation cracked under the weight of exposure. And in that moment, beneath golden lights and stunned faces, everyone understood something powerful. Truth may be delayed, but when it arrives, it does not whisper. The silence did not last long. He stepped forward suddenly, reaching for the microphone with shaking hands. The confident groom who had stood proudly minutes ago was gone. In his place was a man cornered by truth. "This is not what it looks like," he said louder now, forcing a strained smile. "Someone is trying to ruin this wedding. Someone is jealous." Murmurs filled the hall. He turned toward the guests. spreading his hands as if presenting a business argument. You all know me. You know my character. Do you really think I would risk everything like this? Do they? His voice tried to sound steady, but it cracked at the edges. Sweat gathered at his temples despite the cool air. The perfect posture he had maintained all evening began to collapse under pressure. He pointed toward the letter still in her hand. These screenshots can be edited. Dates can be manipulated. Anyone can create fake evidence. The room shifted again, not in belief but in uncertainty. Some guests exchanged doubtful glances. Others frowned, sensing the weakness in his defense. She stood quietly, watching him unravel. If it were false, why does he look so afraid? He turned back to her, lowering his voice slightly. Why didn't you come to me first? He asked, almost pleading. We could have talked about this privately. Privately. The word echoed between them. Privately like the meetings. Privately like the secrets. Privately like the lies. He stepped closer, his tone softening. You're overwhelmed. It's a big night. Emotions are high. Let's not make a mistake we can't undo. Was she the one making a mistake? The guests watched every movement now. Some shook their heads. Some whispered his name in disbelief. His best man avoided eye contact. Her father's expression hardened. He tried again, louder this time. This is sabotage. Someone wants to destroy us. But the more he spoke, the more his composure slipped. His breathing grew uneven. His jaw tightened. His eyes darted across the room, searching for support that was no longer there. Because the evidence had been too precise, too detailed, too real, too detailed, too real. And deep down, everyone could feel it. She finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. Then explain the hotel receipts, she said quietly. Explain the transfers. Explain the dates that match the nights you were not home. He opened his mouth. No answer came. The silence that followed was heavier than his denial. In that moment, the powerful image he had built, the successful man, the loyal partner, the perfect groom, began to crumble piece by piece. No expensive suit could shield him now. No charming smile could rewrite the facts. Because when lies are exposed, words become weaker than truth. The ballroom no longer felt like a wedding, felt like a courtroom. Whispers turned into arguments. Chairs scraped against marble floors as guests stood up, forming small circles of debate. Some faces showed sympathy. Others showed frustration. The celebration had fractured into sides. Her mother rushed toward the stage first, eyes filled with tears. "Sweetheart," she whispered, reaching for her hand. She did not ask questions. She did not demand explanations. She simply held her daughter's fingers tightly, as if reminding her she was not alone. Then her father stepped forward. He had been silent until now, watching, listening, absorbing every word. His face was calm but firm. Without saying much, he moved beside his daughter and stood at her shoulder. His presence alone sent a message louder than any speech. Support. Across the hall, the groom's family reacted differently. His mother shook her head in disbelief. "This is humiliation," she said sharply. "This could have been handled privately." An aunt leaned closer to the bride and whispered urgently, "Think about your reputation. Think about what people will say. A wedding like this, walking away, will follow you forever." Reputation. The word echoed in the air like a warning. Guests pulled out their phones, some still recording. Others sent messages, spreading the news beyond the ballroom walls. The once joyful music had been replaced by raised voices and broken trust. Friendships began to split. One bridesmaid wiped her tears, standing firmly beside the bride. "She deserves honesty," she said. Another guest shook his head, muttering that public drama was unnecessary. How quickly love turns into sides. Her groom tried once more to speak to his father, seeking protection. But even his father looked uncertain now. Pride and disappointment battled across his face. The bride looked around the hall, at the flowers, the lights, the decorations chosen so carefully. Just an hour ago, these same people were celebrating her happiness. Now they were debating her courage. Why does defending myself feel like committing a crime? She felt the pressure closing in. Voices urging forgiveness. Voices urging silence. Voices urging patience. But none of them had read the note. None of them had felt the betrayal carve into their heart. Her father gently squeezed her shoulder. No speech. No drama. Just strength. The wedding planner stood frozen near the entrance. The musicians quietly packed away their instruments. What had been a symbol of unity had transformed into a battlefield of loyalty. And in that battlefield, she realized something powerful. When truth appears, it does not only test love. It tests everyone connected to it. Some stand beside you. Some step away. The noise around her slowly faded. Arguments softened into whispers. Whispers dissolved into silence. The ballroom, once glowing with celebration, now stood still, as if even the walls were waiting for her decision. She looked at the stage one last time. The flowers, the arch prepared for vows, the aisle she had walked down with hope in her heart. Everything was still beautiful. Nothing looked broken, but she knew it was. Her fingers rose slowly to her veil, the delicate fabric that had framed her face all. Evening now felt heavier than ever. With steady hands, she lifted it away from her hair. The movement was simple, but it meant everything. A quiet gasp traveled through the hall. Cameras clicked rapidly, capturing the moment. Some guests covered their mouths. Others lowered their eyes. The groom stood frozen, watching her as if he still expected her to change her mind. She did not cry. She did not shout. She simply stepped back from him. Is a wedding worth saving if it is built on lies? Her father moved closer, standing at her side once more. She did not need to speak. The answer was already clear in her posture, in her calm, in her silence. She turned her eyes toward the man she had planned to call her husband. For a brief second, the room disappeared. It was just the two of them, standing between what was promised and what was revealed. He looked smaller now, not physically, but in presence. The confidence, the charm, the control, all gone. In its place was regret and disbelief. She held his gaze. I loved who I thought you were. Then she looked away. That was the final moment. No dramatic music. No applause. No bows. She gathered the front of her gown gently and stepped down from the stage. Each step echoed through the quiet hall. No one tried to stop her. No one dared. The doors at the end of the ballroom seemed farther than before. Yet she walked toward them with steady grace, her head high, her shoulders straight. Guests parted to make space. Some reached out as if to comfort her, but she kept moving. Not in anger, not in shame, in dignity. The grand doors opened slowly. A cool breeze from outside touched her face, lifting a few strands of hair. Behind her, the wedding decorations remained untouched. A perfect setting for a ceremony that would never happen. She did not look back again. The doors closed, and in that silent ballroom, beneath crystal chandeliers and scattered petals, everyone understood that the night had ended not with vows, but with truth. Because sometimes walking away is not weakness. It is the bravest promise you can make to yourself.